relatively new performer, so she'll be with us next time. Tonight we have a great treat, an international treat, all the way from Canada. Acclarion.
All the way from Canada, 2.5 hours away, and we're from Windsor, and it's been fun when we're in Detroit at least to say your neighbors to the south, which is the one and only time a Canadian can say that to an American. My name is Dave, and this is my lovely wife, Becky. Now I say wife instead of sister, because I know there's at least one person in this audience that might have been thinking, are they brother and sister? Unless there's any kind of materials here that give away our name. Every concert for the past year, we've asked audience members at the end to feel free to ask us any questions. There's something pretty unique going on here. You don't see an accordion and clarinet every day. And if you do, and we're old news to you, then I apologize. But most people, the first question they go and ask is, not about the music, not about anything, but are you guys brother and sister? And it gets old when you're husband and wife to, no, we're not brother and sister. I'm much better looking than her brother. So just get that out of the way early. You are in for a unique experience, to say the least. Sometimes I look at what we do. I mean, every time we cross the border and we have to explain to a customs agent, no, really, we make a living playing accordion and clarinet. They're like, well, what's your day job? This is my day job. Really? Do you roll out the barrel? No, we don't roll out the barrel. What we do is a little bit unique to the point where even managers and agents over the year have been like, how do we market these guys? What do we call this style of music? Loosely, it's classical, but by the time we're done tonight, you won't have a clue what to really label us, because we still don't know what to label ourselves. So we just hope you enjoy the music. We will be talking a lot, and you are free to laugh if you think we're funny, or give us pity laughs if you don't. Either way, make noise, because we're classical musicians that don't want to make you feel like you're at a classical music concert, if you know what I mean. So the first piece we're going to do tonight is called Klezmerized, and it's a piece I wrote for the two of us. It's the very first piece I wrote for the two of us 11 years ago, and it mixes klezmer, jazz, and Gershwin-esque sounds, and all that into one cool little
places where you might expect to actually hear the accordion and clarinet.
to one of the many roots of the accordion. And we're going to now take you over to a type of music that is very rarely played on the accordion because the accordion simply was not around when this music was first composed. And the reason why we're able to play this very, very early Baroque music by Handel is because David has a very special kind of accordion.
Baroque, not Baroque. It's broken music. Yes, I do have a special accordion, and no, I'm not going to do an infomercial pitch to sell you one of these. So some people start to think, is he getting ready to do a pitch? He stands up and he's holding his accordion. You can get this on like the Ronco food dehydrator, or one of those cheesy infomercial products. I apologize if Mr. Popeil is in the room right now. My accordion is unique because if any of you have an accordion, show of hands if anyone either used one or used it as firewood or sitting in your attic or basement. Okay, there's quite a few of you. So now you've got me nervous thinking that some of you are like analyzing my every musical gesture. So for those of you that don't know, most accordions have these 6 rows of buttons in the left hand, and that's called the traditional stradella accordion. So that comes from a town in Italy, and that's the accordion, if Becky, if you'll hold this, that lets you play your traditional right? Your polkas and waltzes. Be honest, how many of you were hoping for a whole evening of polkas and waltzes? You ain't getting it. The other 3 rows are this chromatic accordion or free-bass accordion. They let me play notes chromatically, just like a piano. So I could take the music of J.S. Bach for piano, and standing up and not prepared to play this, I will give you a little demo. So I can play, as we call it in classical music, the legit stuff, the repertoire by the great masters, and that's why Becky exploits my accordion for full effect by having me play these kinds of pieces we're going to do tonight. So this next one by Handel is from his keyboard suite, and it's called The Harmonious Blacksmith, Air and Variations, and it introduces
My bazooka, the bass clarinet, the giant big brother of the clarinet family. It was exactly twice the size of a regular clarinet. And I need to bring out the big guns because, well, I need to compete with all of David's notes somehow.
So we hope you enjoy this. This is The Harmonious Blacksmith. actually, it's a good point, and at some point I try to get to this point, but I forget sometimes, so thank you. Everything we do is either going to be pieces that I composed for us or pieces that I arranged for us, because there just isn't anyone out there doing it for our two instruments. It's not the most lucrative industry, you know? What do you want to do when you finish school? I want to arrange music for accordion and clarinet duos. The one that exists in all of North America. So, yeah, no, out of necessity and out of being a control freak also, I must do it all myself because I don't trust anyone. And yes, people have offered. This next piece is one that I wrote for us when we were living in northern Alberta. Just 2 years ago, we were living in northern Alberta, and we've lived as far north as the Northwest Territories. So all of us complaining down here about being cold in the winter, you have nothing on the Northwest Territories. But when we were in northern Alberta, there was a beautiful black cat who belonged to an RCMP officer, which is basically our national police force. And he loved to come and visit our home and come inside, and naturally I didn't want to steal a cat from a cop, so we did ask permission to have him spend time with us. And he inspired this next piece. It's as simple as that. I saw the cat walking, and I wrote a piece. People always want such a much more rich explanation for what inspired you. There really isn't. But Becky, on the other hand, has a way of describing the music to make it sound so much better than it is. And I think it's pretty good, but she makes it sound like, wow, I'm a master creator. So I'll let Becky introduce.
And that's why I get to pick the titles of all the pieces. So I decided to name this one The Twilight of Shadows, because it kind of reminded me of that time of day, twilight, where the day and the night are kind of starting to blend together, and that real world and the fantasy world also start to blend together. And you can never be too sure if maybe you are seeing fairies or elves at that time of the evening. So this is The Twilight of Shadows. It has a very kind of movie soundtrack feel to it. It starts off with a beautiful, lush melody, and then it goes into a little bit of a piazzolla-like tango, and then a wobbly waltz, inspired by the way that little black cat would kind of walk along the edge of our deck. That's dangerous precipice that it was. And then we finish off with another kind of, well, is it schmoozy? Can I say that? Yeah. Nice kind of schmoozy, lyrical ending to it all.
I've learned over the years, she's my wife, she can say whatever she wants.
Now, we're going to party.
Oh, we are going to get rambunctious. We are going to get loud. We're going to get festive with a quintessential Latin accordion piece called Tico Tico. Oh, look at that, Becky. We have an incredibly aware audience. Most people, I say Tico Tico and they just, okay, that's what it's called.
Well, and that's what happened to me. I actually learned this piece from a Latin drummer. And I first actually played it with him. And then I came home and I said to David, oh my gosh, this is such a fun piece, we have to play this. And he asked, what is it? I said, oh, it's called Tico Tico. And he's like, oh yeah, I know that one.
What I didn't like was her playing with another man, but I forgave her. It's a different instrument, so I don't play drums, so I know someone in the room does though, so I'm gonna hope that you don't get his business card. Tico Tico, our version of this is on our first CD, which is available at the back there. And this version is a different version from that. So we hope you enjoy our loud and totally upbeat version of Tico Tico.
After the intro, which is slow.
River is probably the most romantic piece of all time. And if you could just imagine for a minute the most romantic place someone could propose to you, like a beautiful candlelit restaurant or on a beautiful beach under a starry sky. Well, David got the beach and the starry sky right, but it was also in minus 40 degrees Celsius on a frozen lake next to an ice fishing hut.
Must we still tell this story 10 years later?
Yes.
I wanted to propose to Becky. We met at university. We were both finishing our master's degrees at the University of Toronto when I asked her to play with me on a recital. And basically how this went was I went to a chamber music meeting where all the students gathered in the giant auditorium at the start of the school year and were setting up to form ensembles for the year. Like the violinists and the viola players and the cellists would form string quartets and the clarinetists would be part of a woodwind quintet. And the accordion player has no one to play with. So he can't be part of an ensemble, so he makes his own ensemble. So I went to my teacher, I got a piece of music for clarinet and accordion that was fiendishly hard, and so he says to me, you better find a good clarinet player or they're not going to be able to do their part. So I went to this meeting and I talked to a professor who was basically presiding over the meeting, and I said, who in this room, there's 300 students gathered, who in this room is the best clarinet player, because my teacher says I need someone who's really good. He points to two people. Becky is one of them, and this red-headed boy in the other end of the room. I kind of eeny, meeny, miny, mowed it, but he was talking to someone else, so I just said, I'll go up to Becky. I introduced myself. She coldly basically said, I'll consider it. Leave the music in my mailbox, and I'll let you know in a couple of weeks if I'll play with you. So that was the first meeting.
The best decision you ever made, because now you got me for life. You would have only had the red-headed boy for one recital.
Sometimes I wonder.
A long drive back.
I know, I got a 3-hour drive home, so I better... So basically what ends up happening is I want to propose to her. Long story short, a few years later we get married at this concert hall as part of the university, and they gave us the space and it was romantic. But basically I proposed to her and I wanted to go to her childhood town of Kenora, Ontario. Is there anyone here who's ever heard of Kenora? We finally have the first audience in 10 years where not one person has heard of Kenora. Thank you.
The streak is broken.
The streak is broken. We have played, down in Oklahoma, someone will have heard of this northern Ontario town called Kenora. It's got 10,000 people. It's about 2 hours away from Winnipeg. And it's a popular destination for Minnesotans who have lakefront property in the summer. They go up there. Basically, it's a small town, and me being the big city Toronto boy was a real snob about it. And I'm like, what's the big deal about Kenora? She'd tell me stories. She goes, when I was a little girl in Kenora, when I was in Kenora, we did this. Kenora's just so beautiful in the summer. So I took her there in February, and go out onto the lake, and I proposed to her in 3 feet of snow next to an ice fishing hut on a beach that she swears was her hangout in the summer, although there was like 1,000 lakes. I don't know how she could tell it was her beach. Bottom line is she said yes, but I didn't hear her at first because my ears hadn't popped from the plane ride. But finally I figured out she said yes. If she had said no, my teacher suggested cutting a hole in the ice and dropping her in so that she wouldn't be discovered till the spring thaw. Wasn't that nice of her?
Obviously, I would say yes.
She said
I'm
yes.
still here today.
The next day we pass her elementary school where she had planted a tree 10 years earlier, and I swear she was more excited to see the tree all grown up than she was to get married to me. Because that night she calls home to her parents and goes, David proposed, I said yes, we're gonna get married. But Mom, my tree is all grown up, it's so beautiful. So to this day I hold it over her head.
So anyway, David wrote this next piece, the Kenora Tango, which is actually the first track on our first CD. When we got back home, I thought he wanted to write a tango to warm himself up with the hot, steamy music. CBC, our radio station up there, thought that they could hear the ice crystals inside the Kenora Tango. But as it is with most of David's music, it's not naturally inspired, but it's not inspired by nature is what I mean. It's just, I want to write a piece of music, and here it is. So this is the Kenora Tango. picture of the ice fishing hut inside the jacket cover of that first CD. I did actually forget to mention earlier that the Twilight of Shadows, one of the earlier pieces that we played by David, is actually going to be featured on our third CD, which will be coming out hopefully around the summer of 2015. And we do have an email list at the back, so if you would be interested in being kept up to date on when the CD will be available and other concerts that we might have in your area, definitely do please sign up for that at the back.
This next piece is by my favorite composer, Mozart, and it's another example of when you play the accordion, it doesn't really matter which classical era composers you love. You can't really play any of them because the accordion was invented after most of them lived. Mozart lived in the mid-1700s, and the accordion, this type of accordion wasn't around until the 1900s. But again, because of those extra rows of buttons, I'm able to play things that you otherwise couldn't on a normal accordion. And so Becky exploits that to great effect with the Clarinet Quintet by Mozart. Now, quintet doesn't require any musical knowledge to know quintet is 5, and there's 2 of us. The Kalamazoo Library, as much as they endeavored to pay for 5 musicians, simply didn't have it in the budget this year. I'm just kidding. But in general, I always find it amusing because, yeah, 2 musicians playing a song for 5 people, and here's the thing, I play the role of the string quartet. So 2 violins, viola, and cello. And yet, I play 4 parts, she plays 1 part, and it's called the Clarinet Quintet. So it just sometimes, it's so typical, right? It's like Rodney Dangerfield used to say, I don't get no respect. Well, that's kind of where we're at here. It's a true pleasure to play, but this piece scares me more than any other you will hear tonight, not for its beauty, it's incredibly beautiful.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is. There's definitely challenges here that I have to say I wouldn't do if she did. So we hope you enjoy the first movement of the Clarinet Quintet. her breath. And we will continue. Now, normally we would take a short intermission, but we're going to keep going and until one of us falls off these chairs. And at the end, we will have an opportunity to meet and chat at the back there for anybody that has any questions, other than the brother and sister one, which we've addressed already. So we are now going to enter our international portion of the program by taking you on a journey through a few different countries, pieces representative of those countries, starting with Spain.
Because I love to travel, and sometimes if you can't afford it, you can let music take you on the journey for you. So we are heading to Spain. This piece is actually called Spanish Dance, written, interestingly enough, by a Russian composer, Moskovsky. And in this piece, it's kind of like you're listening to a bullfight. And I get to be the brave matador, and David gets to be the bull.
I don't know if there's a backhanded insult. Maybe it's a very forward insult, I don't know.
To play for you deux pièces de cabaret, or two cabaret pieces, that were actually written by the composer who wrote the Twilight Zone theme. So if you ever are doing a crossword puzzle, which I've just started doing recently, and there is a clue that says composer of the Twilight Zone, his name is Marius Constant.
So I think that's less likely to turn up as a clue than seeing an accordion and clarinet duo in your hometown. So you guys have hit the lottery once, you're not going to get two weird things in 1 week.
So anyway, this is the kind of piece where you could have sworn you've heard parts of it somewhere before, but guaranteed you haven't. It's because it starts off with that kind of classic French cafe sound. You can almost imagine that you're sitting there out on the street patio, sipping a cafe and enjoying the lovely street musicians. And then the scene changes over into can-can dancing. The truth is with that piece, I've been getting so many more comments about my bass clarinet that David was getting jealous. So I said, okay, you can be a doubler as well. Here, have a whistle. So he got to have his doubling experience on that one.
Now, for those of you who are familiar with an auto union, we actually do have a musicians union, and you would get what they call a doubling fee for a second instrument in the same concert. Take a guess if I'm getting a doubling fee for that person.
So now we're going to hop over the English Channel and take you over to England and perform for you 3 pieces by the English composer Vaughan Williams. These are actually a part of his 6 studies in English folk song, originally written for cello and piano, and then it's being arranged for so many instruments since we thought, hey, why not try it on the accordion and clarinet? So the first of the 3 almost conjures up images of the lush, green, rolling hills of the English countryside, and you can almost imagine the sun rising up as the birds are starting to wake up in the morning and the little rabbits come out and hop around. It's just absolutely a beautiful, beautiful, serene moment. And then the second piece is a lilting lullaby. And then the third is kind of like a sailor sea shanty. You can almost imagine the sailors rigging up the boat, getting ready, and then it starts to sail off and disappear off the horizon. And all this happens in under 3 minutes. next one is the last one in our international set, and it's a great piece to end that off with because it is called the Introduction and Shardash. And Shardash are actually Hungarian gypsy dance. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that the gypsiers are the greatest partiers of all time. Because this piece starts off with almost the same kind of sound as imagining that lone gypsy violinist on the top of the hill kind of calling everybody to the party. And then the party gets started with a rocking Shardash dance. And they are dancing and dancing and dancing all the way until morning. And then suddenly you see the sunrise come up again. Maybe they'll pause for a moment to admire it. And then it's right back, rocking again, partying and dancing all the way through back into the night.
That's why she introduces the pieces.
It is from Fauré's Requiem, which is, morbidly speaking, it's a mass for the dead, or literally speaking, it's not meant to be morbid. Mass for the Dead in Fauré's time, in the 1800s, was a grand scale work celebrating the life of the person who had just passed. Fauré's Requiem in particular is beautiful because he kind of goes against the grain. Most requiems are in a very dark, minor sounding key, and he writes a lot of his with that uplifting major sound. The thing that did torture this musical genius was that it took him 21 years to complete this Requiem Mass. Now the part we're playing is only one very, very, very small part of it. It's a full hour-and-a-half work. We're playing a 3-minute section. That said, in that 21 years, he revised the piece so many times to get it exactly the way he wanted. And then just to show you the kind of things that can happen long after he's gone, here you have an accordion and clarinet taking his piece that he's perfected the way he saw it with a full orchestra, a full choir, and an organ, and you're taking it in now an accordion and clarinet. But he's gone, so he won't know. And everyone else has seemed to like it, so we're hoping he would have too. She looks at me and says it, but she's the one who made the program. So don't, you can't fault me for placing this fiendishly difficult piece right towards the end of the program. See, this waltz was written by Marie-Auguste Durand, who is a Romantic era composer who is more known for being a music publisher. than a composer, because back in the 1800s, people had fun by basically having chamber music concerts in their living room. Much like in this space here, someone would invite a group of musicians to their home and they would play for a small but lovely audience, much like yourselves, maybe a little smaller audience than this. And what ended up happening after a while is composers figured out that a lot of these people who were hosting these concerts were also amateur musicians themselves and would enjoy playing some music by great composers. So the composers basically started writing really catchy music to appeal to the amateur musicians, because their publishers were telling them you can make more money writing, it sounds like a modern day pop song, right? You can make more money writing this kind of music than your massive symphonic works that, you know,
And your requiems.
and your requiems like the previous piece. That said, this piece it's virtuosic and flashy, but it's made more so when you take it from the piano, which it was written for, and then try to give the clarinet a part. What happened was, I could play the piano part exactly as written. So when we started our duo, I was like, well, if we're a duo, we should both play, probably, right? So I'm like, if I can play the entire piano part, I either, you know, she sits there twiddling her thumbs, or I have to write her a new part. So I wrote her a new part, but I was oblivious to the fact that she requires a lot of air to breathe to play that instrument.
He's an accordionist. He has his bellows, which act like a mechanical lung, blowing the air through the reeds, so he can just breathe whenever he wants to survive, and that's okay. I have to breathe through the same place, my mouth, both to play my clarinet and survive. And there is no room in this piece to do that.
It's 4 minutes of non-stop, super fast notes that just don't stop the entire time. And I wrote a part that basically matched what I'm doing so that she's playing every second of the day. So partway through the piece on our first practice, she's keeling over off the chair, her face is turned blood red, and I'm oblivious to this because I'm just excited that we're trying a new piece. I had to make a few changes so that it could work for her, so she's got a total of 20 seconds of breathing time now in 4 minutes. So this is truly a ridiculously hard thing for the clarinet to play. And if she does keel over, please don't call 911. We're Canadian and we can't afford an American.
Sometimes they throw tomatoes at me.
So you mean I don't have to listen to anything on the way home? Any complaints about what I did wrong tonight? Oh yeah, I'm in for it. Thank you so much for coming out to hear us tonight. We have one more number we're going to close with that needs no introduction, so I will take a moment just to tell you again, we do have 2 CDs at the back of the room. A third one that's in production right now. We just finished recording and mixing all those tracks, so it should be released for the summer. The 2 CDs at the back, people often ask if you are getting one, which one should you get? That's personal. If you look at the tracks at the back, many of the pieces we played tonight are from both of those CDs. There are many that aren't as well. And a few are from the upcoming 3rd CD. I would say the first CD is more, which is the one with the
rose and.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if you turn behind you, you can see he's holding it up right now, but that's the first CD. That has pieces like the Kenora Tango that you heard earlier, Klezmerize, the piece that we started the program with. Tico Tico's on there. Yeah. And the second CD has a little more of the classical repertoire, including pieces with harp and piano, and a beautiful track by J.C. Bach, where Becky actually plays 4 clarinet parts.
All at the same time.
Recorded one after the other over top, so she's like a little virtual orchestra herself. We do encourage you to, if you enjoyed our music, to consider buying a CD. They're $10 each. And also sign the mailing list, please. We'd love to add people to it. We only send out a maximum 1 message a month, and it's usually a link to a video of a performance we've done on our YouTube channel. So it's not bad spam. I mean, we're not some corporation. We're 2 musicians who love what we do and are devoting our lives to our instruments, much against our accountant's advice. So do consider that. We will end tonight with one last piece, and thanks again for coming.
Mm-hmm.